Hello and welcome to Stage Perspective. My name is Charles Peters, and our guest today is Jill Drexler, actress and artistic director of Scripps Theater. Hello.
Hello.
So I wanted to have you on because you've had quite a career, and I wanted to hear. My first question is, how did you get started as an actress, as a performer? What were some of the first things that you did?
Okay, so I actually remember the very first line I said on stage. I don't know how old I was, but my line was, "You didn't invite me to your christening, but I too have a gift." I was the evil fairy in Sleeping Beauty, and I wanted to play Sleeping Beauty, and I remember the teacher sitting me down and saying, "Look, Sleeping Beauty really isn't that great a part. Actually, the evil fairies are more fun," which is true. It's always more fun to play somebody with a little bit evil.
I've heard you give that speech to actors now.
Yeah.
Not in those words, but like that.
That's the truth.
I know you wanted to play this part, but this is a better deal.
This is a better part. It's meatier. It really is. Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Well, Roger says I spend most of my life playing bitches and bimbos.
Well, I don't know about that, but you definitely have. I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, there's not. I really can't think of anybody in town in San Diego that's like you, that delivers lines like you, that has this sort of tone. There's almost like, I hesitate to like put a point on it, but it's like almost like an Eve Arden kind of thing going,
Oh, I love Eve Arden.
So.
That's a high compliment.
Oh yeah, I just she has a way. She could just like be talking. And it doesn't even matter what she's saying. There's just something about, like, if you want that sort of little bit of snarkiness and that, I'm going to call you. So absolutely. So
well, did you at some point, and it was a while ago, but I played for a couple of years. I played wives or girlfriends who had their husbands murdered. And I mean, it was like I was getting typecast as the person who murdered their husband. And Roger had me, like testing his food and starting his car in the morning because he was getting a little worried.
It's funny.
But I think I've gotten nicer as I got older.
Yeah. Well, but you played dice roles as well, because I've seen you on stage many times. And you and I have only, you and I worked together, together working at Scripps Theater, like producing and creating and so forth. But I don't think you and I have ever shared the stage except as me directing a short that you were in, like for Play Festival. I think that's the only thing we were in together.
I think so.
Yeah, we've read together many times, but we've not ever been in anything. But we did.
You did right. Too scary to have both of us on stage at the same time.
Maybe. You did Ray's Last Case with Charlie Riando, which is my stepfather-in-law. So
I've been married to Charlie more than anybody else.
That's right. It's like 11 times, right? Isn't it like 11 or 12 times? And he played Raymond Chandler, and you played his wife. What was the wife's name again? Do you remember? He had a nickname for her. At any rate, that was a great piece. And Tim West wrote that, and he was basically like, you guys are the only ones to play it. So that was a lot of fun. But
that's nice.
Yeah. What did you grow up here in San Diego, or did you?
No, I grew up in Rye, New York. And then moved to California, to Beverly Hills, in my sophomore year. And I was thinking about, you were asking about influences. I was thinking, when I was in high school, there was a teacher who she didn't teach at Beverly High. She taught at the rec center. Her name was Rose Landau. I think she was Martin Landau's wife. I'm not sure about that. And she ran this wonderful theater for teenagers, improvisation, and Richard Dreyfuss was in it. He and I did Suddenly last summer as kids, if you can imagine us doing that.
Very heavy.
Years, yeah. But she was an influence. And then I had a wonderful professor in college. His name was Jesse Swan, and he had such a great attitude. He said, nobody should be just an actor. If you're going to be in theater, you better learn to build a set. You better learn how to light a show. You better know all of that, which I think was really brilliant.
Yeah, I had similar professors, and people tell me that where I kind of learned everything. Like, I wanted to know, like, how everything worked, just to be a lot of it is also being able, and this is probably coming to play with you being artistic director, but being able to communicate with a lighting designer, with a sound person, with backstage people and stage managers, and be able to say, this is what we need. Yeah, that's interesting. Did you go to Beverly Hills High School?
I did.
You did? Okay. Yeah. And did you now I know you modeled too when in your younger days, right? You did that in Los Angeles, yeah. And so what are some highlights from your Los Angeles days? Because I remember you told me at one point you talked about working at a studio, that you were working at one of the studios, watching them audition for something. So.
Oh God, yes. Well, I thought I wanted to be a director, a television or film director, which didn't work out. But actually, I tried acting in LA for a while, but I was not really happy in Los Angeles. I mean, like it was all about what kind of shoes you wore,
right?
And it was very social. And I started too late. I got my SAG card when I was 30. And that's just in LA. I mean, you'd go to agents and they'd say, "Oh, excuse me, I don't look at anyone over 19."
Right. Yeah. And they're wondering, where's your resume if that's when you're starting? They're going, where's your experience?
Yeah. And how many people do you know? Which is much more important than.
Yeah. That's true.
But I was pleased. I got my SAG card, and I'll give a shout out to Bill Virchis, who got me my very first part in a major movie. It was because it was filmed at Southwestern. We were both teaching, and it was a film called Dogs, where the dogs. It was one of those movies where it's the science experiments, and all the dogs had gone crazy. So my part was Screaming Woman number 4. So you can tell how important a part it was.
That's all it takes, though.
Well, it got me. You needed 2 speaking parts. My second speaking part, I actually got through Richard Dreyfuss because. He was making a movie called The Big Fix.
Yep.
A party, actually his 30th birthday party. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Can't we write something in for Jill?" But, and they did. They wrote me a little part, which ended up on the cutting room floor. But that's okay. It got me my card.
That's great. When did you come to San Diego?
I came to San Diego in early 70s.
Okay. Yeah. And you acted around. Did you just transition into acting immediately and start acting around in town, or?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, started in community theater and then kind of getting paid.
Yeah. And
I had gotten paid actually in college because I was involved in a Shakespeare festival called the Pomona Valley Shakespeare Festival, where they paid. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I felt professional anyway, for what it's worth.
That was me. I think my first professional check was like for $10. For all this work that I was doing in a theater in Texas. So yeah, interesting. Did you, so when you came here, when did you first work at Scripps?
I auditioned for Scripps, a long time ago.
Sure.
And I wasn't cast. I was pretty annoyed, actually. But then I came back because, that's what happens. And then the first thing I did was, actually it was something that, Raylene Wall, something that Raylene directed, called The Cemetery Club.
Okay, yep.
And so then years later, I became artistic director when
How did that happen? Did you had no designs on that, I imagine. I mean, you didn't audition. You weren't like, oh, a lot of people, that's their goal. Like they get in, they go, they want to produce, direct, they want to do this, and then they want to take over a theater.
As a matter of fact, John Simons, who was the artistic director before me, was one of those magicians who did everything. I mean, he built sets, he directed shows, he wrote at that point there was a newsletter, he wrote the newsletter, he lit the shows, he did the publicity, so there was no way I was going to step into those shoes. But what I did do was send him ideas for plays. And when he looked for somebody, when he wanted to retire, he said, "Jill, you're the only one who reads plays." And really, that's probably one of the most important things that an artistic director does, is read a lot of plays and pick plays to do.
Yeah. You and Terry Brown, I mean, like Terry, like you ask her a question, she goes, "Oh, you should do this. You should do this." She's got, you ask her a question about, I want to do a play with blood, or I want to do a play with a divorced woman. She'll name 10 plays, just rattle them off. Oh, you know what you should do. So, and you're
Good,
like that. So,
yeah.
so she's,
because I read a lot of plays, but
yeah.
most of them aren't very good.
Yeah.
You know, you wonder, how did this thing get published?
Right. Yeah. It gives playwrights hope.
Yeah.
At least myself, I read and I go, my gosh, if this got published, but there's got to be hope for me.
What were they thinking?
Yeah. And you've been the artistic director basically is roughly like 15 years. Is that right? Is that how long?
Even longer, the early 2000s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
And when I first started being artistic director, there was something in the contract that said you couldn't act in any of the plays because they were afraid that the artistic director would just pick plays that would be vehicles for that person. Which is a temptation.
Yeah.
But I did say no. I'm not going to cut myself out from every acting gig that might come up.
Yeah. And you're not only, I mean, you act at Scripps, but you've acted in a lot of other theaters around in town. You've acted at Signet. You've done work at Ion. You've done work at, you've worked at New Village, right?
No, I haven't worked at New Village.
You worked at New Village. I know you worked for Moonlight Avo and you know, a lot of other theaters. Yeah. Lyceum and so forth.
North Coast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you ever travel? I mean, because you talked about living in Los Angeles, and I know a lot of actors sometimes they go on the road and they come back and they go on the road. Have you pretty much stayed in town? And I mean, running a theater is a full-time job, obviously. But, yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I used to do as far as traveling was when my agent, I just got sick of that drive. You know, you'd go up there for an audition. It took you 2.5 hours or 3 hours to get there. You're in the audition for 5 seconds saying, you know, Mr. So-and-so will see you now. And then you walk out thinking, should I have said, Mr. So-and-so will see you now? Should have I said, Mr. So-and-so will see, how should I have done it? You know, and then you got a 2.5 hour drive back and you hope to God you don't get a call back because you'd be driving tomorrow that, you know, it just, I used to hit San Juan Capistrano and go, oh, this is good.
I'm almost there. I like coming from LA to San Diego because it feels downhill. It feels like you're going downhill.
It does, but you're really going better.
But, you know, even living in Los Angeles is the same kind of feeling because I lived in LA for 15 years and the same thing. And I went on auditions but just the trouble, the rigmarole of just getting in the door and then getting to the audition is enough. But I know actors that drive up to LA and I'm like, I don't know how you're doing that. I just don't know, you know.
I actually like theater auditions, especially in San Diego, because you know people and it's kind of like old, you know, the usual suspects when you walk in and it's a nice feeling. But in LA, it's just a different thing. I mean, I can remember at one point Roger drove me someplace and there was like a line of people going around the block. And he said, "You're not going to stay, are you?" Yeah. And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to stay. This is how it's done."
Yeah.
But I mean, it's fun.
Fred was telling me about that. He was saying in New York doing the cattle calls, and this is way back, you know, when he lived in New York as an actor, and he was talking about walking in with hundreds of people and they would literally just walk in and they look at you and then go, "Thank you." Yeah. And then you just walk out.
And the hundreds of people all look like you.
Yeah. And it's funny in town, you really do, if you just start to work a little bit, you start to get to know so many people, you know, and what are some other influences? I mean, we talked about Eve Arden earlier, you know, talking about that. And, but you talked about your early professor, your teacher, Mrs. Landau. But who are some of your influences? And do you have theater influences and film influences? People you go, "Oh wow," you know.
Oh yeah, as far as people I don't know, but would. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I played a lot of parts that Maggie Smith made famous.
Oh, okay.
I have great respect. Yeah. And in town, I've got to work with some fabulous directors. I actually was in the show that was the last thing that Craig Noel directed.
Oh wow.
Which was pretty wonderful. And I remember he said, as a director, it's interesting. He said, I very often listen to most of the rehearsal, keep my eyes closed and just listen And he said, I learned so much when I stopped looking at the actors and just listened to them.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow,
yeah.
gotta try that.
Yeah. That's that old thing where you see the director sitting in the chair backwards, just listening to the dialogue and not watching the action. So, yeah.
And you think he's sleeping. And then
yeah,
I remember
maybe.
Sean Murray said something which I love, and I think he stole it from Mike Nichols, but I love it anyway. He said, have the courage to kill your babies. Do you know what that's about?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've done that a lot. I've had to go, I really love this, but it doesn't work. I've got to let it go.
It's working, but it's just, I keep doing it. Yeah. I need to try something different. I can't just keep relying on this just because it's working.
Yeah. There was a bit in Baskerville that I absolutely loved, which is a comedy, Sherlock Holmes comedy, if you don't know. And I loved it to death. And it was just like, I can't. It's just nobody. 5 people are going to get the joke. And just like, never mind. So I left it out.
Did it?
I never did it. No, I took it out. So it was a pause moment, and I had him go get a cup of tea and come back and then restart the action. And it was just like, no, it's not working. It's not going to play. So yeah. So you mentioned directors that you like. Who are some of your favorite directors in town besides myself?
Of course, you would be the head of my list. But after you, way down on the list, there are some others. I'm going to now mess somebody up and not mention them. But,
that's okay.
I just worked with Jen Thorne, and I have such respect and admiration for her and her.
Yeah.
I have great respect for directors who can see there's an obvious way and it would work, and then they do something just 180 from that.
Yeah.
Sean does that, and Jen does that a lot.
And Jen Thorne's at Moxie, right? Just to clarify. Yeah, just so for people watching. So, yeah.
And the other director who I love to see work is Kathy Brambacher, and I've worked with her a lot. And she is a great influence, and I have nothing but incredible respect for her because she's so nice.
Mm-hmm.
And people tend to think that that's because she isn't strong.
Yeah.
But if you ever see somebody step out of line, you see a whole other side of Kathy Brambacher that you didn't know existed. She's not weak. She's just nice.
Yeah. That's funny. I heard a story about a director that I always thought was kind of like very low key and very quiet. And I heard some stories about, oh no, he's nothing like that. He yells and screams and, goes off on tangents. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's good to know. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of yelling and screaming at people. When I directed in high school, sometimes you have to like throw a little fit, but usually you're just acting, just to scare them. But I don't think people do well being yelled at or berated. I had a professor in grad school in theater who thought that his job was to like cut you down and tear you down so that you would be prepared for what life would be like as an actor.
Yeah.
But I never thought that was a great idea.
No. Yeah. I've dealt with that myself, and I was in operas when I was a kid, like full blown, like full scale Fort Worth Opera Company. And,
wow.
So that's the whole 9 yards with the orchestra and and I've watched conductors go throw batons and scream. I've watched them storm out of rehearsals. I mean, it was like quite a show as a kid to see that. I was like, oh, okay.
But I've never seen you in a musical.
I've been in a few. I've not done a lot in town, but I've done a few. So, yeah.
I want to see you sing.
I did. I sang a little bit, kind of music hall, and a panto, which was a Sherlock Holmes thing, which was very silly. And then I sang as Bert Healy in Annie, and did the You're Never Fully Dressed Without a Smile, and so I've done a few. I don't remember the last musical I did, but so
okay,
it's been a while, but it's on my body. I should get back in, and those are so big in town, and now musical theater is such a big thing, and there's so much of it in town. So but so I know that you like Scripps. Do you have a favorite theater that you like to work at? So we'll take Scripps and put it aside.
You have to.
Have to put it aside. Yes.
You know, the theater doesn't make as much difference to me than the physical theater. I mean,
right.
As the director and the people I'll be working with. I mean, they always talk about how, you know, when you're in a cast that it's a family, but it's the truth. You know, you spend a lot of time together.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been in shows where people didn't get along, and
yeah,
it just ruins it. And then I've been in shows where literally you're crying when it breaks up.
Yeah. There's been a few
That's what makes
shows.
the difference to me, is the people.
It is. It's always the people. It's always the cast. And yeah, usually for me, I always try to I'm usually left out. I'm the outsider if I'm directing. Because I want my cast to bond. But it's like when that happens, it's like, okay, it's like children. It's like, you know, you want them all to get along. It's like, great, that's solved. So,
yeah.
And I've been very lucky recently to have that happen a few times, and it's been a magical thing. And I talked to Rhiannon the other day, and she's like, they're still in touch. They were still meeting and getting together, you know, after Italian-American reconciliation.
Oh,
so
nice.
Which is like very cool. So yeah.
Move Over Mrs. Markham, that cast
same thing
long after going to each other's shows. And
sure,
you know, it's Scripps, when we have auditions and somebody comes in and they just have kind of a vibe that you think, I don't know about this person. You know, the audition was strong, but there's something. I don't want to hire somebody who's going to sit in the dressing room and gripe or, you know, cause friction.
The drama. It's like no drama.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep that on the stage. Save it for the stage.
Yeah.
So, do you have some favorite roles that you remember from, you know, over the years of like that? Oh man, I wish I could play that role again, or I really love that role.
You know, I don't really like to play a role twice. I have.
I don't either.
I've played Madwoman of Chaillot, I think 3 times.
Huh.
I played Lettuce and Lovage twice. I did Fit to be Tied twice. And that's one of my favorites because I worked with Delicia. Who's such a genius.
Yeah.
And it was such, I love comedy. I love comedy. I mean, we practically went out for coffee while people were laughing and came back on stage. It was, it's a very funny show. And so I like that show. I like Lettuce and Lovage, and I've done that twice. Sometimes it's the show. We did Diary of Anne Frank at North Coast. And something happened that really never happened before to me or since. When that show went down, when the curtain went down, there was total silence every night for so long that the first few times it happened, we wondered what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
And then we realized that we had impacted people so much.
Was Charlie in that one?
Yeah.
That's the one that Janice told me about, because the end, he closes the show.
Yeah. With those pictures, the real people in back.
Said the photograph of the guy and they look the same. And so it freaked the audience out because they looked so much alike.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, she said that and so the audience was just like, it made it way too real for them. And she said it was eerie because that photo of that guy, it looked like him at that time. So yeah, I thought that's what the show you were talking about. Yeah.
I mean, you get hit with what kind of an impact theater can make on people in such a visceral way.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you, if you could change something, I know we're in a midst of a lot of changes in theater, you know, just in general with, you know, inclusion and just opening up the doors more. And, you know, I know we're all mindful of that, but we're trying to improve ourselves. If you could change something about San Diego theater, is there something that you would change? Maybe it's that. I mean, but you know,
I think that would be first. Is diversity. We really have to fix that.
Yeah.
And we're working on it. I mean, we really are.
Yeah.
Just being aware of the problem or the situation is the first step, and then we got to do something about it. Yeah. And at least the Scripps, we're really trying.
Yeah, we do. We really do. And we have directors that come in that are really like adamant about finding you know, somebody that is a diverse cast and so forth. So and I know a lot of theaters really strive for that. So unfortunately, in San Diego, we don't have a big pool of diverse actors. It's rather limited, and the ones that are really good, they end up moving on to other things and going like to Los Angeles and getting out of town.
But maybe it's a chicken and egg thing. We don't have them coming to auditions because they don't think that they'll be cast, and so
very true. Yeah,
we gotta fix that.
Yeah.
And with the Theater Alliances, I've always thought that theaters should be able to communicate more with each other and help each other more. I mean, you have a prop person who knows other theaters, and she says, "Oh, I can call Globe and use. I know they've got an old phonograph we can use." And it doesn't happen enough. We're all kind of in our own world. I sometimes, and I've had support from other artistic directors, where I'll email and say, I am looking for an actor of this age and this, and I get lists from people, which is fabulous. But we need to do more of that, where we share, because unlike, maybe if you buy a refrigerator from one company, you're not going to buy another refrigerator from some other company. But people go to lots of theaters.
They do, yeah.
So we don't have to cancel each other out.
No, we don't. I hope that this sense of community continues. It would be nice. The one thing I would like to see is more for there to be like a central thing of plays being done. Like, you don't see 4 Blythe Spirits being done in town over the span of a year. That's for example.
So we aren't all doing the same year after year.
Yeah, exactly.
I got an interesting. This is long before my time at Scripps Ranch, and I will not name the other theater, but apparently there was a letter sent to another theater that said, "So we recently did whatever play it was, I don't remember, and your director actually called our actors and asked if they would come over and do the play, and then had the nerve to ask if we had a recording of our play that he could borrow." So I thought, well, that's that's out there.
Yeah. I was privy to a thing where a theater had announced they were doing a play, and within like 2 weeks, the other theater that was sort of, on the same level as that theater, we're doing the same play. And it's like, what are you doing? We have announced this like months ago, and now you're doing, it's like, you already knew we were doing it, but they were trying to do it before them. And it's like, they had put it later in their season and they were doing it earlier. So, yeah.
But, that's one of the wonderful things about Scripps Ranch and Oceanside Theater Company is that we get 2 theaters who get to do the same show, but it's not taking audience away from either one of them.
Yeah, no, people that go to Oceanside are not driving down to Scripps and vice versa, so it's not really happening.
And it makes for a longer run. I just in town, I'll see a play that I think, oh, I got to go see that, and then I'm busy, and then it's over. Because it had like a 2-week run. So I think the longer you can put something up there, the more word of mouth can get out, and you can get a better audience.
Yeah. I started to ask you earlier, do you have a dream role? I know a lot of actors have like roles they're like, oh, I would love to play this role eventually. You probably have played a lot of roles that you wanted to play already. So
yeah, there's some Shakespeare now. Years ago, I did Bianca in Taming of the Shrew, and I wanted to do Catherine.
Yeah.
So there's that. That's that should be the story for me. Always wanted to do Gertrude in Hamlet.
Yeah.
Lady Macbeth. I mean, those are Shakespeare writes strong women parts.
Yeah.
But as far as modern theater, nothing jumps out.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Give me one of your best. You have, I know actors have this. What is like a best moment for you on stage? Like this is it.
Lion in Winter, which we did at Scripps, and again Charlie played Henry.
Right.
And marvelous, where she just rips him apart from top to bottom.
Yeah.
Anytime you get to really let loose on stage.
Yeah.
It's lovely. It's really fun.
Yeah. That's great.
And
That's great.
Did Lend Me a Tenor at North Coast. Lend Me a Tenor. They do the whole show in like 2 minutes in case the audience forgot. They're doing the whole show.
Right.
And so much fun. And the audience loves it. And like running a marathon, but
yeah,
God, that was fun.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. You mentioned earlier you had some notes. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about or let us know?
You put on, you told me what you might.
Yeah, I've sent you some sample ideas of things to talk about. Yeah.
People getting into the business.
Oh, and yes, so, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. So I did write down, my biggest thing would be start early. I know that people like to be well-rounded. My experience, I mean, if you want to do it professionally, my experience is people who start early have a leg up. I had an interview with Lin-Manuel Miranda, and he was saying how he had gone to, I guess it was high school, with so many talented people, so many incredible people. Yeah. And I think it was 60 Minutes, the interviewer said, am I interviewing you? And he said, I picked a lane early and I stayed in it. And I thought, yeah, you know, when I was in high school at Beverly Hills High School, I was doing little shows, you know, and Ricky Dreyfuss was getting an agent and going out on calls.
Yeah.
So starting early, I think, is a really, really good idea.
Yeah.
And then the other advice I would have is everyone, because you just never know. I can remember an audition.
Be nice to everyone. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had an audition in LA with the guy next to me. And I was on my way to an audition. And I was talking about the audition and the part and all this stuff. And then we both get out. And of course, he's the casting director.
Ah, yeah.
And I thought, you know, what if I had said something? This is a really stupid part. I don't really want it, but you know.
Right. Yeah. This is in the elevator that you were going up with him. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I always ask, when we have auditions, I always ask our audition coordinator, what did you think of this person?
Outside, right?
Because
we get them in the theater where they're all nice and, hi, how are you? And outside they're like, this is BS, and yelling at the thing. Like, well, he was really rude, or she was really rude, or absolutely.
And I listen.
Yeah. Yeah. You never know. And you don't bring that. It's like bringing a virus into your into your theater, sort of, in a way. So yeah. Yeah. What kind of movies do you watch?
Well, right now, just anything that's on.
Anything that's on. I mean, do you like old movies? Do you like new movies? I mean,
I like old movies. And what's come clear to me watching these old movies is how changed the role of women is. Yeah. And when you look at how women, even the strong Rosalind Russell, or you know, whoever else supposed to be strong women, it's just totally different. I mean, they put up with stuff that if you try to put that in a film in 2020, there's no way an actor would play it. She'd say, well, I can't do that. That's it's demeaning.
There's a lot of stuff that does not translate, but there's a lot of things that, you know, we look back and we think of that time period as being, you know, that women were soft, and, you know, and there is that, but there's also, when you think about strong women and you think about the 30s and 40s and 50s, there were some strong women characters during those times, you know, very strong. Yeah. So classic films. So
my theory is that if you're going to make it in that business, in the film business, you better be strong and you better be smart.
Yeah.
I don't think there are any dumb people who make it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all about perseverance, I think, a lot of it. So numbers game, you know, and just and luck, you know, a lot of people just get lucky. So, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
And I'm going to be very cynical now, but it's a lot who you know.
It is a lot who you know. Yeah. My first gig on General Hospital was through a friend. I was on General Hospital for a day, and I was on with big celebrities, which I didn't even know. And it was like guest stars were on that day. And I was playing the croupier in a casino and calling out and going and interacting with the famous actresses, which was really something. And she was very nice. She actually asked me, she goes, do you want some coffee? You know, this is Laura from, you know, Luke and Laura fame of General Hospital. She goes, would you like some? It's like, Sure, thank you. So she was extremely nice. But no, I mean, and I got that gig because I knew a guy who had done some background work on the show and said, I know the casting director, and I went in and auditioned, and I just sat in his office and read, and then the next thing I got a call. So
it's not that you weren't talented. It's not that you weren't beautiful in the part, but there were probably dozens of other people who could have done the part.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and I think it's that thing of like, well, if he knows this guy, then maybe, and I like this guy, and we've worked with him, maybe he's okay, you know. And yeah, that's probably one of the bigger things I've done was and
I think most people are extremely nice in general and helpful to each other. I did a movie that Cheryl Ladd was in, and it was fairly early, and she stepped in, none of her business, stepped in and gave me some advice about where my eyes went on the camera. Huh. I mean, just to be nice.
Yeah.
So I think in general, actors help each other. That people like to think cutthroat and, you know, out to kill each other. And
I think there is that element, but I generally, it's not, you know, I haven't experienced it that way. So yeah, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jill, is there anything else that you would like to give as parting words to say to the San Diego people, or people thinking of moving here or doing theater here? Anything else?
You know, I listened to an interview that David did with Amanda Sitton, who's now Amanda Wallace. And she said, I guess he asked her what her philosophy was. And she said something that stuck with me, and I this morning to say, I don't want to misquote you, but I think I've got it right. So she said, whenever she goes into a new show, she tries to go in with low ego, high respect.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's great. I want to borrow that. Low ego, high respect.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Respect is a big thing with me. So yeah, I just, you know, it took me a while to get there, but yeah, being respectful, that's like everything about respect. So it all falls into place.
I've seen you do that in auditions when somebody comes in who's, you know, perhaps not the most skilled or experienced actor, but you give that person the time and you treat them just as if you'd be treating if Meryl Streep had walked in.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Because you never know. You never know who you're talking to. And I think I've messed myself over a couple of times where I've not known who I was talking to. And it's funny because I've run into a couple of celebrities, you know, in Los Angeles, and then had other people run into them and talk to them like they didn't know who they are. And I'm like, don't you know who that is? That's Robert Zemeckis, you moron. You know, it's like, what are you asking him that for? So yeah, it's very funny. But well, Jill, this has been great. Thank you for doing this. And
it was fun.
Yeah. And thank you for coming on, and we'll see you next time.
Good. We'll see you soon.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us for Stage Perspective. This has been Jill Drexler, the artistic director at Scripps Ranch Theater and actress in San Diego. And my name is Charles Peters, and we will see you next time. Be sure and like the video if you like the video, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Charles.